Hello everyone, and welcome to the Rogue class version. But before we get in, I would just like to say that the Rogue has always had a very good and wide a range of skills and abilities that they can utilize in terms of like RP and interacting with the world. I will say that historically the Rogue definitely has probably lacked the most in terms of flavor and versatility in combat. Though, with all that being said, going over the UA a while back, I will give credit where credit is due, of course, that Wizards of the Coast have uplifted the Rogue in a very good and I would say fun way that makes it so that not only is the Rogue now good at both, outside of combat and, have a lot of opportunities and ways to excel outside of combat. Now there's fun things that they can do inside of combat that kind of now evens the class across the playing field in order to make things more engaging across the board. That being said, I did add a couple different things into the class. I think there's a couple different spots that I wanted to make sure that the Rogue got, especially for the capstone ability. Been really making sure that all these classes do have a very solid 20th level. And then I've kind of filtered in a couple of things here and there. But ultimately, I would say that the Rogue was in a very good spot from the UA. And so we're just going to jump into this and we'll see where it's at now. Alright, as usual, above me you have the Unearthed Arcana. To my side here, you're going to have my version. And then, of course, I have our old trusty and old reliable 2014 version of the Player's Handbook, so we can compare things to that as well. I don't know why I'm scrolled down. There we go. Now we're set up. So let's go ahead and jump into this. First things first, you're going to have the table outlining all the different things that you're getting. Hit points are going to remain unchanged. Proficiencies are going to be dexterity, intelligence. Choosing 4 skills from this wide array of options here. Definitely 4 is the most of any starting class, which makes the Rogue just super good. Very widespread across multiple different aspects of D&D in terms of what you can be good at. And then tools are going to be Thieves' Tools, of course. Armor is going to be light. Weapons is going to be simple weapons. And then martial weapons that have the finesse property, which is an update from 2014. Whereas before, and that's kind of across the board. Whereas before in 2014, there was a lot of like stipulations or very specific weapons that classes could have proficiency in. They kind of cleaned that up a bit in the UA. And I do like how they've kind of tweak certain things and just kind of made it kind of all-encompassing in some capacity, or having it more kind of exclusive in certain keywords, not necessarily just certain weapons or specific weapons. So I do like that. Equipment's going to be the same as the UA in the sense of that you can either take all the listed equipment or you can spend an amount on listed here. So it's the same from the UA. But getting into the actual class features, let's go ahead and jump in here. At first level, you're going to get expertise. You get expertise in 2 skills of your choice. You're going to get expertise in 2 of your skill proficiencies of your choice. That is going to be the same as 2014. Sneak attack. You know how to turn a subtle attack into a deadly one. Once per turn, you can deal extra damage to one creature you hit with an attack roll if you're attacking with a finesse or ranged weapon, and if at least one of the following requirements is met. Advantage. You have advantage on the attack roll. Adjacent ally. At least one of your allies is within 5 feet of the target. The ally doesn't have the incapacitated condition, and you don't have disadvantage on the attack roll. To determine the extra dice or the extra damage, roll a number of d6s equal to half your rogue level, round up, and add the dice together. The rogue table shows the number of sneak attack dice you get at each rogue level. The extra damage type is the same as the weapon's damage type. I will say that this has been kind of a little bit better organized, which I like. I mean, they kind of have a couple of like different sections that you can kind of easily just navigate to. So, but inherently, this is essentially the same thing as 2014. Not much has changed. Sneak attack has, I'd say, fundamentally in terms of feature mechanic, has always functioned pretty well, and so not much has changed in that, but. Moving on, level 1, Thieves' Cant. You picked up various languages in the communities where you applied your roguish talents. You know Thieves' Cant and one other language of your choice, which you choose from the standard language table. Pretty good first level feature there. I mean, Rogue at first level gets pretty stacked up here, so that's pretty good. And all of these, for the most part, have remained unchanged. I will say, I noticed this kind of going over things before I started the video, that I probably will go in and I'll probably add a little bit more flavor text to Thieves' Cant, because in the 2014 they have some of that flavor, and I like that. Kind of like how Druidic has some descriptions as to what Druidic is. I realize now that even in here, even for the UA, and then also for for when I translate it into my version. It doesn't really explain what Thieves' Cant is, and I think that needs to be done. So I'll go ahead and definitely put add some stuff into there, and then when you go ahead and kind of click the link into the description of the video, you will and get taken to the PDF. You'll see that it will be updated. So. Moving on, even more things at first level. You get quite the stack here. Weapon masteries. Your training with weapons allow you to use the mastery property of 2 kinds of weapons of your choice with which you have proficiency in. Whenever you gain a rogue level, you can replace one of your weapon mastery choices with a different one. Really like weapon masteries. Makes it so that you have more options in combat, especially as a martial, as all the martials are getting weapon mastery. The weapon mastery feature, super cool. So right off the rip, rogue is looking pretty solid. Level 2 is going to be Cunning Action. Your quick thinking and agility allows you to move and act quickly. On your turn, you can take one of the following actions as a bonus action. Dash, disengage, or hide. Extremely good. Unchanged. Level 3, Rogue subclass. It's going to be the same. Level 3, new UA introductory, or a new UA introduced feature, which I really like here. At level 3, also you get Steady Aim. As a bonus action, you can give yourself advantage on your next attack roll on the current turn. You can use this feature only if you haven't moved during this turn, and after you use it, your speed is 0 until the end of the current turn. I really, really like this feature because what this allows is this allows the rogue to be able to get their sneak attack a lot more often, as one of the stipulations is you have advantage on the attack roll. I really like that. I think it makes it so that way that the rogue doesn't have to work nearly as hard in order to get one of their fundamental core class features. It makes it so that you can go ahead and almost enable it under certain stipulations. I do like the counterbalance to this. I like the fact that you can give yourself advantage. You can kind of proc your sneak attack. However, you're unable to move. And I do think in combat, movement and being able to be fluid is a very big thing to be able to do. And I think having to then remain still after you do that is kind of a good trade-off here. I think it's well balanced. I think it can make for interesting things. I mean, if you're a ranged rogue, then this is pretty good. But I do think that is a really good kind of balanced mechanic. I really like that they added this, because I think that not being able to utilize one of the core features as sneak attack is frustrating. If there's a lot of stipulations maybe in a combat situation that are working against you. But not only that, this also allows you to be able to utilize that one attack that you get as a rogue and be able to, it increases your chances of hitting a lot more often, because as a rogue, as a martial, you are DPS because of your sneak attack dice. However, you only have that one attack, so if you do miss, it can kind of feel pretty bad. And so I do think that this is kind of a really good, he just flopped. I think this is a really good adjustment to the rogue to allow them to be able to have access to their, fundamental features. And you'll see how this kind of blends into something else a little bit later as we progress here. Now, I'm actually pretty quickly here. So level 4 is going to be the ability score improvement, and here we are, level 5, Cunning Strike. You've developed cunning ways to use your sneak attack. When you deal sneak attack damage, you can add one of the following Cunning Strike effects. Each effect has a die cost, which is the number of sneak attack damage dice you must forgo to add the effect. You remove the die before rolling, and the effect occurs immediately after the attack's damage is dealt. For example, if you had the poison effect, remove 2d6 from the sneak attack's damage before rolling. If a Cunning Strike effect requires a saving throw, the DC equals 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your dexterity modifier. So the actual options here are going to be Disarm. It's going to cost 1d6. The target must succeed on a dexterity saving throw, or it drops one item of your choice that it's holding. Poison is going to cost 2d6. You add a toxin to your strike, forcing the target to make a constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the target gains the poison condition 4 levels. At the end of each of its turns, the poison target can repeat the save, reducing the poison levels. See poison condition rules. To use this effect, you must have a poisoner's kit on your person. There are like levels to poison and stuff like that, kind of input there. I have adjusted how poison functionally works in my setting, in how I run D&D. I basically made it so that instead of just having a poison condition, you now gain levels of poison. So there's 10 levels, and essentially different kind of intensity of poisons can give you more or less levels depending on them. And I think it's a lot better way to make poison more of a gradual thing, and you can either make it a more gradual thing or a very, kind of hard-hitting thing. But I like that it's more progressive than just having the poison condition and having a disadvantage on all your skill checks and all of your attack rolls just from the poison condition is extremely good if you're putting it on something, or very detrimental if you're receiving it as a player. And so I wanted it to feel like there's a little bit more of a build up there than just immediately getting hit with that condition, and now you're just like basically just, I mean, you're just going to be fighting an uphill battle from that point on. So that's just a little insight to the levels there. I will more than likely be doing a video on how I adjusted some of the conditions in D&D, because I have adjusted multiple. But regardless, poison, 2d6 cost, very cool. Trip, 1d6 cost. If the target is large or smaller, it must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or have the prone condition. And then withdraw is going to cost 2d6. Immediately after the attack, you can move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this a little bit. Cunning Strikes is one of the, I think it has honestly bridged the gap of where the rogue lacked the most, and has brought it to an amazing point now to where honestly the rogue across the board is now even. It is now from start to kind of finish very fun to play, and it doesn't lack so much in certain areas that it has before. I really like Disarm. I think that there's not a whole lot of features in D&D that disarm that force a creature to drop an item, and I think that's pretty unique. I think it's pretty cool. I don't think that mechanic or that kind of functionality in combat is utilized very often, so it can make for very interesting moments, and so I really like that. Poison, I like that they're kind of bringing poison into the base class of the rogue and making it a little bit more accessible, and so I do like that. It makes the poisoner's kit have a lot more relevancy in games, so I like that a lot. Trip, knocking a creature prone, is also very, very good. And then withdraw, it can be extremely good in terms of breaking up your movement and being able to, or not breaking up your movement, but being able to utilize movement in combat and be able to come in, make a quick sneak attack, and then bow out. I think it gives you a lot of flexibility in how to navigate the battlefield, so that's super cool. And this kind of goes back to what I was mentioning about steady aim. I think that now you have access to a lot of these other basically maneuvers, these abilities. I think that it's really good that you can now, have more opportunities to utilize your sneak attack. Because now, in a way, sneak attack isn't necessarily all about damage. It's about manipulating creatures in the battlefield, changing the tide, and changing certain situations into, different, potentially more beneficial outcomes. I just think it's a really, really cool feature, and I think it's well done. And what I really like about this as well is that I have every intention. I didn't really get to it because I was obviously building out the rest of these classes, and I was really busy, but I have every intention of potentially going in here and adding one or two more of these. I think that you can definitely have, there's a lot of things that you can do with this in terms of homebrewing even more, or you can even then, add some more to subclasses. You can go back and throw in a couple of different ones that you get. I know that they updated. I'm actually going to go ahead and scroll down here. Because in the Swashbuckler, in the updated Unearthed Arcana Swashbuckler, they even have 2 more Cunning Strike options that they added. They updated into the class. And so I think that that's really cool. And I think that that's something that I definitely will probably be doing in the future as well. So, alright. I'll stop saying this is cool and keep moving on. Level 5, also you're going to get Uncanny Dodge. When an attacker that you can see hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to halve the attack's damage against you. That is unchanged from 2014, from the UA. So level 5 is pretty stacked here. Really, really good. Level 6, you're going to gain additional expertise, which is where you gain expertise in 2 of your skill proficiencies of your choice. That is going to be unchanged as well. Level 7, Evasion. You can nimbly dodge out of the way of certain dangers. When you are subjugated to an effect that allows you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw, and only half damage if you fail. You can't use this feature if you have the incapacitated condition. That is going to be unchanged. So, super awesome. Just love the abilities that you can get as a rogue that just make you feel like you're just super nimble. Alright. So, just a quick change here that I made. At 7th level, you also got Reliable Talent in the UA. And in 2014, the Reliable Talent was at level 11. Though I do like the concept of Reliable Talent, in which I can read here, you refine your talents until they approach perfection. Whenever you make an ability check that uses one of your skill or tool proficiencies, you can treat a d20 roll of 9 or lower as a 10. I've added this kind of mechanic for this feature in other classes, which you'll have seen. For instance, the Bard, I added something like this into the Bard's class. But I think 7th level is really is just way too soon to be able to guarantee a lot of these successes on various skill checks. Obviously, it's not a guarantee, but with the rogue's ability to add expertise in, with them having a wide range of proficiencies out the gate with being able to choose 4 and then from your background, I just think reliable talent is at 7th level is way too low. And even in the 2014, I thought 11th level was way too low. So I took it out. I moved it to the far back half of the class in order to kind of have a little bit more balancing there and to make it progress a little bit more organically. I think this feature is, I think it's really cool, but I do think it should be definitely far back half of a class. And so that's why you do not see it here for me at level 7. All right, moving on. Ability score improvement. The 9th level is going to be subclass feature, and then 10th level is going to be an ability score improvement as well. And then 11th level is going to be quick strike. Having developed your striking technique and becoming incredibly quick at executing them, you can now perform a cunning strike without needing sneak attack to feel the effect. Instead, the effect takes place after you've resolved your attack's damage. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. So essentially what you can do with this is you can now use Cunning Strike without needing sneak attack to feel it. And so there's actually multiple ways that you can utilize this. You can actually use this feature if you have sneak attack and you just want to do the full damage of sneak attack and then also add in one of these features, one of these abilities, or you can do quick strike without having sneak attack added onto it. So essentially, you can do a cunning strike ability without having to also have sneak attack. So say you had disadvantage on an attack, and then maybe with steady aim you brought it to a straight roll, and you didn't get sneak attack because of that, then you'd still be able to add one of those features. So. I like this a lot more than what they did with the 11th level UA, where you can now use up to 2 of your Cunning Strike effects when you deal sneak attack damage, paying the die cost for each. Big reason why I switched it is I didn't want the rogue to bog down combat in certain instances, because if you were able to do 2 of these effects, then essentially the creature would be rolling 2 saving throws, and then they'd be getting hit by 2 of these things, and so the DM would have to really, not only describe multiple things happening, but there'd be just a lot of bottlenecking, I think, in terms of combat. If you were to force a creature to do 2 saves, resolve all this different stuff, and so I think that making quick strike the 11th level feature is a little bit more, is a little bit better, and I think that it's a little bit more versatile in a way. I think that this is a cool way that you can now. I still have access to certain things even without needing to fill other stipulations, and so that's why I adjusted that there. Level 12, ability score improvement. You gain the ability score improvement. Hooray! Level 13, subclass feature. You get a subclass feature. Level 14, you have devious strikes. You have practiced new ways to use your sneak attack deviously. The following effects are now among your cunning strike options. Daze, cost is 3d6. The target must succeed on its constitution saving throw, or it has the daze condition until the end of its next turn. Obscure, cost 2d6. You strike near the target's eyes. The target must succeed on a dexterity saving throw, or it has the blinded condition until the end of its next turn. Knockout, cost is 66. The target must succeed on a constitution saving throw, or has the unconscious condition for 1 minute or until it takes any damage. The unconscious target can repeat this save at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. So, super awesome here. Whoa. Excuse me. You will see that, I mean, you probably have already looked, but you will see that I've actually adjusted a couple of the dice cost for some of these. Like poison is 2d6, withdraws 2d6, whereas before in the UA it's 1, it withdraws 1, and then you can see here that daze was 2d6, obscure is 3d6. I switched those, I made it so it's 3d6 for daze, 2d6 for obscure. I left knockout at the same amount, but that way, it's a little bit more balanced in terms of what you're actually getting for the trade-off of your sneak attack damage. But I like this. I like that now you have more options in your pool of strikes that you can do. I think this is super fun. I do like the daze condition a lot more than the sun condition, which I can explain in a later video. You'll definitely see. But essentially, it's similar to stun, but just not as crippling. But I don't really like the knockout one. I left it just so that way it's there, because I couldn't think of really an alternative to replace it with. I'm not really the fan the most of this, of where you can just basically knock a creature out. It can be kind of It can be kind of anticlimactic in certain situations. It can be kind of really, it can be very, very good depending on certain things too. And so I left it in. I mean, let me know what you guys think. I don't know. I just think that it's kind of can be really, really OP. And kind of can just lead down to some really strange, results of certain maybe like high stress encounters. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. I did leave it. I'll probably switch it out at some point, but let me know what you think. I think it's interesting to say the least. So, moving on, you have the level 15 Slippery Mind. Your cunning mind is exceptionally difficult to control. You gain proficiency in wisdom and charisma saving throws. Super good there. More saving throws is never a bad thing. And Slippery Mind is actually going to be the same in 2014 and is going to be the same here in the UA. So, 16th level is going to be the ability score improvement. Level 17 is going to be a subclass feature. Level 18 is elusive. You are so evasive that attacks rarely gain the upper hand against you. No attack roll can have advantage against you unless you have the incapacitated condition. Extremely, extremely good feature there. But that is also going to be the same. 2014. So 2014 kind of had it going on for the Rogue. Not gonna lie. Obviously there were some classes in 2014 that were just, but the Rogue was definitely one of them that they did a really solid job with, and you can see that by the fact that there was not very many changes and there wasn't a whole lot of gaps that we needed to fill. That was the coach felt that they needed to fill, or myself. And so moving on, this is gonna be the level 19. And then level 20, I will say, level 20 is probably, and that's kind of across the board. Level 20 capstones in 2014. Some were decent, but for the most part, they're pretty lackluster. And so that's one big thing that I have adjusted, is I wanted to make sure the capstones are truly a pinnacle of reaching the height of a class. You can see that in the UA, they actually kept the same capstone as the 2014, but I have adjusted it. Well, I added a couple different things to it, but still taking kind of inspiration from multiple features that already existed. So, level 20, Master of the Craft. Your talents and skills have become so well refined that failure is hardly ever an outcome. You gain the following benefits: Pinnacle of Finesse. Your dexterity score increases by 2, and its new maximum is now 22. Reliable talent. Whenever you make an ability check that uses one of your skill or tool proficiencies, you can treat a d20 roll of 9 or lower as a 10. Stroke of luck. If you fail a d20 test, you can turn the roll into a 20. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Boom. Honestly, the only thing I really added there was the Pinnacle of Finesse, where you get a dex bump. But reliable talent was, like I mentioned before, it was the 11th level feature in 2014, 7th level in the UA. I just added it to the back end, far back end, to the capstone, because I think it just kind of really pushes that threshold and shows you that as a rogue, you basically become this master of the certain skills that you have trained essentially your whole life at this point to master. And so I like that being there. Stroke of luck is really cool, because say you do still fail something, you just happen to be that, you're a rogue, man. Luck always seems to be on your side. And so you have that ability to kind of just instantly turn the tide of something there. And then the dexterity bump is just to kind of also just play into the fact that you just become so quick and so nimble and so dexterous that, you're just now passing that baseline that any other person could achieve. So yeah, that's Rogue. Honestly, I think not too much to adjust. I think Rogue, just like kind of the Barbarian, which if you haven't watched that video, feel more than free to do that. You can kind of hear some similar things that I mentioned in this video, but not much I needed to do. I think there's a couple different things that I felt I needed to adjust and that I wanted to kind of add in. But honestly, the Rogue has always been a pretty solid class. It's always had a very strong core identity, and so with these new Cunning Strike, Devious Strike, with these features, now it's allowing the Rogue to have a lot more versatility in combat, which is I think where it lacked. I think that the Rogue can be kind of boring when you're in these combat and having to kind of navigate and just not having a wide range of tools. But with weapon masteries and with these different strikes, I think that really just bumped it up, and I do think now that the Rogue is honestly in a very, very solid spot. So that's about it for this. If you want access to this PDF, the link will be in the description of the video. I actually made this PDF utilizing a website called the Homebrew, which is basically a website where you can make D&D look-alike PDFs documents, which is super cool. Feel free to check them out. They're awesome. And then last but not least if you have any feedback or comments, especially about this knockout, I would really like to know some kind of collective feedback on that, because I haven't really seen a whole lot of people mentioning that or talking about that in various videos and across the internet. And so I'd be curious as to what y'all think about that as well. But outside of that, if there's anything else that you might have some positive, constructive feedback on, feel more than free to leave that in the comments. But that's about it. So I'll see y'all in the next video.